Okay, now let's talk pendulums. What is a pendulum? In general, a pendulum is a balanced weight that's suspended and swings freely. For divination, it's a tool that is often used to pull information from your higher self as well as universal and galactic knowledge. For example, this is a pendulum. This is the one that I use whenever I do any muscle testing, or honestly, I just kind of feel like playing with a pendulum. Obviously, it's super active already today because it is swinging, but this is what it looks like. See if I can kind of get my lens to focus in on it. There we go. Ain't she pretty? I'm a big fan of her. No pendulum, no problem. Since all you need is something that is evenly weighed on a chain, you can easily use a necklace. So grab your favorite necklace, and as long as it has a pendant that comes to a point or that is a little bit more elongated, you'll be good to go, and you can easily use a necklace instead of a traditional pendulum while you're practicing. But I do recommend upgrading to using an actual pendulum once you get used to it, because honestly, it's just a little bit more fun and it just makes me feel cool. Now, before you start swinging, make sure to really set a positive intention as to why you are using the pendulum. Remember to focus in on your breath and really just center yourself, and also make sure to stay hydrated. I'm going to talk a lot about hydration, but hydration really helps when it comes to getting accurate answers and allowing energy to flow through you from the supercomputer down into your hands or into your pendulum. All right, now that we've covered exactly what a pendulum is, different items that you can use in lieu of a pendulum, and intentions to set and what to look for in regards to being hydrated and all that good stuff, let's get into the nitty-gritty and talk about actually programming your pendulum. For this section, I'm going to zoom in so you get a full-on look of how the pendulum works, but you might not actually see my face while I talk you through this, and that's just simply because I am zooming in so you can get the front row seat to the pendulum swing. The first thing you'll want to do is to place your pendulum in your dominant hand and put your elbow on a level surface. Let's talk about how to grip your pendulum. Now, this is the pendulum that I'm going to be using for today's example. So I'm going to put my hand behind it so you can kind of get a close-up look. It's long, it's made of sterling silver, and it's got a really pretty stone at the bottom of it. And I honestly can't remember what it is right now because my brain is mildly mushy and a little bit fried. But you can see it's got some length to it. Now, what I'm going to do, and this is just up to you, personal preference, I don't like a really long swing. I like my swings to be a little bit more controlled in a sense and just a little bit shorter. That way I know there's not a lot of momentum behind it, and it helps me confirm that this is coming directly from what's up here in my supercomputer rather than saying like it's drafty or something in the room. So I like having more control. So what I'll do is I will kind of dip down just a scotch the actual pendulum. So you can see I've got like a light grip on it. I get my fingers out of the way. I'm looking at this in reverse. This is always fun, right? But you can just see here that I've got a nice light grip and I've got it dropped down a little bit. And so the only reason why I do that is simply because I like a little bit shorter of a swing. And again, that is personal preference. I know quite a few people who like to hold it at the top. That just ain't me. So it's completely up to you. You have freedom to do whatever you'd like in that regard. As you can see, I have dropped down the camera. So we are getting a solid look at my elbow being directly on a table on a level surface. This is my desk. And I've got my pendulum in my hand. Kind of bring the focus here. So as you can see, I've got the chain dropped down. My grip on this is loose. That way there's no forcing of movement. And I am going to start programming the pendulum. Now, this is the next step in using your pendulum function. The first being getting yourself into your prime position where your elbow is on the table and you've got that nice, not too firm, nice and loose grip. And then now we're going to program it. Now, what I mean by programming is that we are going to find out which way your pendulum wants to swing naturally for you. It's different for everybody. When you are holding your pendulum in place, One really solid thing to remember is to stay as still as possible. Now, I know that's hard because you're breathing, you're moving your head when you speak, and speaking often creates movement, but just trying to be more in control of your body is a really good place to start when you're using a pendulum, because you want to make sure that you're not forcing any movement just simply because you're kind of jerking about. I know for me, that's a little bit difficult right now, especially as I'm filming this, because I have my screen next to me and I'm looking over to it, reading prompts, so I keep on track as I speak. So me moving my head, you can actually see the movement of my neck in my shirt there. It forces my arm to move a little bit. So I'm trying to be as controlled as possible as I do this, which is a little bit difficult, but we are gonna do our best here. So right now, what I'm going to ask that we do is, again, we have our elbow on the table. We've got a loose grip on the pendulum. I'm trying to get my fingers out of the way here so that my camera lens focuses on this. Now that we have everything in place, let's take a look on how to exactly program the pendulum to swing just for you. I recommend using this phrase so you can repeat after me. I call upon my higher self to please show me a no swing. So as you can see here, my pendulum is now starting to swing left and right. So that to me is my no swing. Okay. So now I'm going to bring it back to neutral position. So I'm going to just hold it down a little bit. That way it goes back to being straight. And it'll just naturally kind of just start spinning and moving on its own. And that's because we're sending energy to it. And so naturally it will move, but then you're trying to tell it where to go and you're directing it with your questions. So the next thing we want to do is do the other release phrase and program it. So now show me a yes swing. So what I'm seeing here is that the pendulum is now swinging from north to south. It's going up and down. So that to me is my yes swing. Okay, now it's important to know that when you're watching your pendulum begin to swing, it may go north, it may go south, it may go east to west, or it could go clockwise or counterclockwise. There is no wrong movement. Basically, what is going to happen is once you ask for what your no swing is, you're just going to bring it back to neutral, which is what we did here when we're bringing it back to center. And then the yes swing is going to be opposite of whatever your no swing was. Now that your yes or no swings are fully programmed, let's talk about neutral responses. You'll find that neutral responses either remain still or spin in complete circles. So for instance, is my name Jessica? Okay, so my pendulum is now swinging up and down, north to south, so that's my yes. Okay, now I'm bringing it back to neutral. Okay. Is my name Andrew? Which, that's my husband's name. So now it's going east to west, left to right. I know this is a no answer. All right, now we're bringing it back to center. All right, so we've established again the yes and the no. Now, I can't think of an example of what a neutral response I might get, but I can just ask my pendulum, show me a neutral response. So I'm just going to focus on that and let it start working its magic. So right now it's completely spinning and it's going clockwise. So that I know is my neutral response. So whenever I am to ask a question that may be, it's not a yes, it's not a no, it's just absolutely neutral, it's going to start spinning in a counterclock or in a clockwise manner. And that's how I know that the answer really doesn't matter. It could go either way. All right, now we've mastered how to program your pendulum. Let's move on to the next section. So let's talk about cleaning your pendulum. When we're doing anything with divination, it's really important to make sure that your tools are nice and cleansed. If you have crystals in the home, you can always use something like clear quartz or selenite to clear the pendulum or necklace that way. And if the pendulum or necklace isn't porous, you can always spray it with a product called Florida water or use incense to clean it as well. All right, so now that we've talked about the fundamentals of what a pendulum is, let's do a little bit of troubleshooting. As we talked about before, pressure on the chain really does make a difference because you don't want to force the answers. So make sure that you have a nice loose grip, that your elbow is on a level surface, and that when you put your pendulum or necklace down, there is no indentations in your finger, because if there is, it means you're holding it a little too tight. And the rule of threes also applies here. So while you're asking questions and getting responses from your pendulum, feel free to ask the question 3 times over to make sure and confirm that the answer that you're getting is in fact correct. I feel like an after-school special talking about this, but another thing to remember is to believe in yourself. Override any negative thinking regarding using the pendulum, because when you think positively about it, it's going to work for you rather than against you.